Do you actually think we were designed to be what we are? Do you think this world was? Or do you think it's more likely we emerged by chance from a small set of basic rules? Do you truly think anything could comprehend and know all? So I kind of came across this question because I was thinking about it, and I just recently kind of recorded a talk because it was in my mind and I just really wanted to talk about it. I don't like doing the audio recording because the audio is bad, but at the same time, there's just really, the only thing I can do is get a better quality microphone. So I'm probably going to do that because once I start talking on the subject, I'm not going to re-say everything I just said. But I brought this up when I was on my drive up this morning to work, and I was looking at or watching some videos talking about emergent life in basically computer programming. Like, you set up the laws of the system, you create this world, and then you let the life emerge on its own and do what it will, right? And I think there comes a point, I kind of talked about it before, but I think there comes a point when you no longer know what's going to happen next. You lose control of the system. Chaos reclaims the order, right? So you took chaos and you organized it and you made it into something that followed a set rules, right? You controlled the chaos. But then in your control of the chaos re-emerges out of it. And so you went from something that was completely predictable. This bumps into this and this goes this way, right? But that motion, this interaction happening, results in a behavior that you didn't predict, right? That knowing this system, this ball bumps into this ball and this one goes this way, right? If that's your set rule, then what happens when, this ball bumps into this ball, and at the same time as this one goes this way, another one comes in and hits it here? Oh, now they stopped, right? And now they're stuck together. Okay, now what do they do, right? And what happens if now, since there's two of them, another one hits, right? And instead of them, breaking off, right, they kind of stop it, right? And then another one hits, and it gets stopped. And another one hits, and it gets stopped. And then all of a sudden you have this thing that shouldn't exist based off of what you designed, right? Based off of the rules that you set. It shouldn't happen, but it did, right? And then now that there's something in your system you didn't account for, everything else in the system is corrupted. You have no idea what's going to happen now, right? Because now this is going to make things happen that now with even the new defined system wouldn't have happened, right? And it just builds from there, right? And so what I'm getting at is that, if we were truly designed, right, do you actually think we're currently acting as intended? Do you think that we're following the instructions still, or do you think we've lost the script, right? And I think it's far more likely that we've lost the script than that we're still following the correct, trajectory. Because there's an infinite amount of ways to lose the script. There's only one way to follow it, right? And so I think it's highly unlikely that if you believe in this person that created everything, think about the complexity of this world. I mean, truly think about it, right? And think about everything that is happening in a square meter distance away from you, right? So, or like around you, right? So you've got a square meter around you. Think about the complexity happening in just that little square, right? How could you possibly keep track of all that information and predict that information, right? There's a lot going on there. And then, if you think about this from, a coding perspective, right? Are you aware of everything that is happening in your code all the time? Or are you aware of the end result, right? And if you're using AI to make your code and run your code and do all these things, just because you set the rules, you gave it the instructions, does that mean that you know everything that is happening? I would answer no, right? And I think there becomes a certain point where you realize, I truly don't think it makes any logical sense to assume anything has complete control over everything. Because how could you? And so, like, if you just think about the scales we're dealing with and the complexity we're dealing with and the layers to reality that we're dealing with here, right? Because it's not that you're just predicting, how physics is going to play out. You also have to predict how, conscious minds and living beings are going to behave and think and act and speak and create and destroy. And at what point, at some point there, I feel like I don't believe there is 100% control over the situation, right? You may have created the initial conditions, you may have set the rules, but that does not mean that the rules are followed necessarily as intended. Because if you can find a loophole in the rules, then you can take advantage of that. And as long as you're not constantly changing the rules, right, then things evolve and adapt and, become something completely different. And so I don't think that we are necessarily designed as we are. I think we've become, what we are more by chance than by design. There may have been some direction, right? But the end product, I don't think was necessarily, planned out. It just kind of happened, is what I think. And I think the same thing for this world. And I think the fact that that's how this world evolved and became to be what it is a part of what makes it so beautiful. Because no one planned this, right? It's this cosmic dance that is capable of making something truly incredible and beautiful. And the intelligence behind it is fundamental and simplistic, but it creates just some extremely incredible and magnificent stuff. And so I think that there's a core set of principles, some fundamental laws. I think I might have talked about this already, about the dimensions of reality, and how the dimensions are really just the set laws of the universe that we find ourselves in. And so when you adjust the dimensions, which are really just like, drag bars or something, like if you imagine you were simulating a simplistic version of this, you would have, your screen here, and you just drag more energy, less energy, more hazards, less hazards, things along these lines, and that's what's setting the results. Those are the dimensions, right, that are based off of they're based off of simplistic mathematics that result in extremely complex and fascinating results. And I think that because this is the case, right, the world we live in, even if our world is some simulated reality and there is a creator God that designed it to be this way, and we're just following this script and we've emerged out of this as a result, the world that this creator God lives in is in the same boat. So it doesn't change anything. Our experience isn't less real. Our lives aren't less meaningful. Because it doesn't change if you find out that everything you know was fake, that it wasn't real, that it was just, a simulated experience. Because it was all a part of your life. It was all a part of your experience. And so anything that you can take away from that experience, anything that you've observed and you've learned and brought into you and who you are and what you are, it's real. That's kind of part of the problem with all these people, right? All these people on the world all have their own idea of what is real. And it kind of makes things complicated because everyone has their own ideas of how everything functions. And to a certain extent, your perspective shapes your reality. Even though we all live in, theoretically, the same reality. I don't know. I feel like I kind of rambled about potentially some mumbo-jumbo, but I do think that it's worth thinking about how complex and complicated, like how complex and insane it would be to manage all of this and actually be controlling this actively, constantly. To be aware of all of this, to be able to predict everything. Because in order to predict anything, you need to know everything. And I just cannot fathom, I can't fathom a world where that actually exists. Because how could you know everything? What does that even mean, to know everything? It doesn't exist. It can't exist. Because in order for anything to know everything, it would also have to know itself, right? And it would have to know everything it's going to think and everything it's going to do and everything that's going to happen. And at that point, it's no longer anything, right? Because if it's aware of everything, then it's no longer anything. It's just pure experience. And at that point, can you truly say that that's a thing at all? That's like infinity. It exists, technically speaking. It's there, but you can never get to it. So does it really exist? As a concept, yes. As a concept, it's real. But is it physically real? Can it ever be attained? Can you ever get there? Can you ever see it? Can you ever know it? And the answer is no. Because by definition, it's unknowable. You can't reach infinity because by definition, it's unreachable. You can't know everything because by definition, it's unknowable. In order to know everything, you'd have to be nothing. If you're nothing, then you can't know anything. And I feel like maybe that logic doesn't track when you say it out loud. But I truly believe that's the case. So, I think there is a fundamental intelligence to the universe. But I don't think it is capable of controlling anything. It just is the universe. It's not necessarily controlling the universe. I don't know. This world is pretty crazy. It's a weird place to be in when you realize you don't know anything. And that no one really knows anything. And what you have isn't much. This world is more than we'll ever see. It'll live longer than we can even fathom. And yet we're here. This is our life. It's moments like these where I sit here, I've got the sun starting to set, and you get that golden hour where the light comes in at a horizontal angle and just hits the leaves in such a way that I can't help but enjoy it. And I always wonder, why don't I do this more? Why don't I enjoy it more often? Is there anything I could be doing right now that truly has more meaning than this? And in the grand scheme of things, no. Nothing I ever do will ever truly matter. Because at the end of the day, it all ends up in the same place. We cannot live forever. We will not live forever. I just want a simple life of peace. I feel like that's a tall order, because how do you even do that? What does that even mean, right? I wrote down on my phone, hold on, I'll pull it out. The simple life of one at peace. What does a perfect life look like? How do we find it? I don't think the concept of a perfect life exists, because it's different. What that means for everyone is different. And the reality is that perfect is not real either. It's a concept. There is no such thing as perfection, because there is always something to improve. Things could always be better. Perfection is acceptance with the current state. And what I wrote down is if I had 3 days every week where there was just nothing that needed to be done. Stuff I can do, stuff I want to do, sure, but nothing that I need to do. I could wake up each day and enjoy every moment of it, knowing that my time's not being wasted, knowing that there's nothing else I need to be doing right now. I don't think everyone's ready to do that. But I think right now, that sounds like a pretty good life to me. How you attain that, I don't know, right? It depends on who you are. Depends on what you enjoy doing. But if I could wake up and walk out here and sit here for half the day, 3 days a week, I think that'd be pretty cool. Would I actually do it? I don't know. But I think I should. Anyway, peace out.